The sun had barely risen over the bustling city streets, yet life was already in full swing. Cars honked impatiently as delivery trucks rumbled down the avenues, and the scent of fresh bread mingled with the lingering aroma of exhaust fumes. On a cold corner, tucked between a dimly lit coffee shop and a row of shuttered stores, sat a young homeless girl named Lily. Her clothes were tattered, a thin scarf wrapped tightly around her neck, and her shoes had seen far better days. Despite her rough appearance, her eyes sparkled with a quiet intelligence and a kind of unwavering hope that seemed out of place in the harsh reality around her. She clutched a small cardboard sign that read, "Hungry. Anything helps. God bless." For months, Lily had survived by the kindness of strangers, finding small odd jobs, and scavenging for food when the streets were particularly cruel. Her life was a constant struggle, yet she maintained a calm dignity that most people overlooked. She had learned early that desperation could make you invisible, that the world often passed by without noticing those who were struggling. Still, every day she woke up with the belief that life might just surprise her one day, that perhaps someone would see beyond her ragged exterior and recognize her worth. Across the street, in a stark contrast to Lily's world, a sleek black luxury car glided silently down the avenue. Its tinted windows reflected the morning sun, making the vehicle appear almost like a moving shadow. Behind the wheel was Jonathan Blackwell, a billionaire CEO whose name was whispered in boardrooms and on social media alike. His wealth was legendary, his influence unmatched, and his eccentricities were the stuff of gossip columns. But today, he wasn't here for a board meeting or a photo opportunity. Today, he had a plan, one that was unconventional, unpredictable, and, in his own way, a test of human character. Jonathan had heard about Lily through the city's outreach programs, a brief story in a newsletter about a young girl surviving on the streets while maintaining her education and small acts of kindness. Most people would have dismissed the story, but something about her grit and humility intrigued him. He wanted to see how a person completely removed from the privileges of wealth would react if suddenly given the power and resources to change their life instantly. With a swift motion, Jonathan parked his car near the curb and stepped out, the polished leather of his shoes clicking against the concrete. He was dressed impeccably, his tailored suit immaculate despite the early hour. The crowd on the street barely noticed him, preoccupied with their morning routines, but Lily's eyes widened when she saw him approach. There was something different about this man, an air of authority, but also a certain warmth that softened the edges of his intimidating presence. "Good morning," Jonathan said, his voice carrying easily across the street. "Are you Lily?" She nodded cautiously, unsure of why someone like him would even know her name. Yes, sir," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonathan smiled, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a sleek black credit card, the kind most people could only dream of, and held it out to her. "I want to give you something," he said. "This card will allow you to buy whatever you need, food, clothing, anything. But there's one thing I want to see, what you'll do with it." Lily stared at the card, confusion, disbelief, and a flicker of hope passing through her eyes. She had encountered charity before, but this was different. This was empowerment, a sudden gift of trust and freedom. Yet instinctively she hesitated. Money in hand had always meant temptation for some and corruption for others, and she wondered what the right choice would be. Her mind raced through the possibilities. Should she buy herself a warm coat, a proper meal, a place to stay, or help others like her who were struggling? The street seemed to grow quieter, as if holding its breath, waiting for her reaction. Jonathan's gaze was steady, unshakable, as though he could see the wheels turning in her mind. He wasn't looking for a particular answer. He wanted authenticity, a glimpse of the real Lily beneath the hardships and resilience. After a long pause, Lily took a deep breath and smiled faintly. "Sir," she said softly, I don't know if I should just take this for myself. There are so many people out here who need help." Jonathan nodded approvingly. "That's why I wanted to meet you. Most people, when given power or wealth suddenly, forget everyone else, I wanted to see if you'd remember them." Lily's hand trembled as she held the card, the weight of possibility pressing against her. She looked around at the street, the other homeless faces, the struggling mothers, the children playing in the alleys. She knew what she wanted to do, but the decision felt monumental, as if it could define her entire future in a single moment. Can I help them too?" she asked. Jonathan's smile widened. "You can do whatever you want. That's the point." For the first time in months, maybe years, Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of hope, fear, and exhilaration. This was more than money. This was a chance to test her own values, to act with integrity in a world that often rewarded the opposite. And as she looked back at Jonathan, she realized that this moment was not just about her survival, but about her humanity, her compassion, and the choices that would define her forever. As the city hummed around them, the two figures stood on the corner, the billionaire and the girl who had nothing, and the world seemed to pause, waiting to see what would happen next. The story of Lily, the homeless girl with a heart bigger than most, was about to take an extraordinary turn, one that would challenge expectations, reveal hidden strengths, and ultimately show that kindness and courage could change everything. Lily held the black card in her hand like it was both a key and a question, heavy with responsibility. The early morning sunlight glinted off its surface, reflecting her own uncertainty. She looked up at Jonathan, who stood patiently, giving her space yet silently urging her to make a decision. The streets were beginning to fill with life again. Street vendors setting up carts, commuters hustling to work, and the hum of traffic growing louder. Everything felt ordinary, yet nothing could feel more extraordinary to her at that moment. After a moment of quiet reflection, Lily made her way across the street toward a small cafe. She had noticed it every morning as she passed by, the smell of fresh pastries wafting into the air, and the smiles of customers who seemed oblivious to the struggles outside. Inside, she approached the counter hesitantly. The barista, a young woman with a bright smile and a nose ring, looked at her with curiosity. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" the barista asked cheerfully. Lily cleared her throat. Everything you have that's ready," she said, holding up the card. The barista blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "You want everything?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "Yes," Lily said, her voice firmer now. "And please, could you also pack some for the people outside? The ones who don't have enough to eat?" The barista's eyes widened, but she quickly nodded, inspired by Lily's thoughtfulness. "Of course, just give me a minute." As the staff hurried to gather food, Lily stepped outside and scanned the street. She spotted a few familiar faces, an elderly man with a tattered coat, a mother juggling two small children, a teenage boy with paint-stained hands who often slept in the alley. Their expressions were wary, shaped by years of disappointment, but there was a flicker of hope in their eyes as they noticed Lily distributing the packages. One by one, she handed out the warm sandwiches, pastries, and drinks, thanking each person with a sincere smile. The street corner, which had seemed dreary and cold, began to transform with laughter, grateful murmurs, and the subtle glow of human connection. People who had been invisible moments ago were suddenly seen, their dignity restored in the simplest yet most profound way. Meanwhile, Jonathan watched from across the street, leaning casually against his car. A faint smile played on his lips as he observed Lily. She had passed the first, most immediate test. She had not taken the wealth solely for herself. Instead, she had shared it, uplifted others, and reminded herself and everyone around her that compassion could exist even amidst struggle. Once the initial rush of food distribution had calmed, Lily returned to Jonathan, her hands still carrying a few leftover packages. I think this is enough for now," she said, catching her breath. "I wanted to help as many as I could, but I wanted to make sure it was done properly." Jonathan nodded approvingly. "You've done more than I expected, but this is only the beginning. Are you ready to see what happens next?" Lily's curiosity was piqued, though a part of her felt nervous. What could possibly come next? She had never known this kind of attention, this kind of responsibility, and yet she felt strangely empowered. The black card, once just a mysterious object, had become a symbol of choice, of integrity, creativity, and courage. Jonathan gestured for her to follow him to his car. "I want to show you something. Something that will challenge you even further, not just giving to others, but what happens when opportunity meets temptation." As they drove through the city, Jonathan explained his philosophy. Wealth and power were not inherently good or evil. It was the choices people made with them that defined who they truly were. "You've already shown compassion," he said, "but the real test is whether you can maintain your values when things get complicated." Their journey took them to an upscale boutique, a luxury hotel, and even a private art gallery. At each stop, Jonathan handed Lily the card and left her to decide what to do. Would she indulge herself, splurge on expensive items, or continue to think of others first? Each decision carried weight, a lesson wrapped in temptation, and Lily navigated it with growing confidence and wisdom. At the boutique, she carefully selected a modest coat and shoes, enough to improve her daily life but nothing extravagant. She asked the staff to donate extra items to shelters and local charities. At the hotel, she booked a small room not for indulgence, but as a temporary refuge for those she had helped earlier in the day. In the gallery, she bought a few small artworks to give to local community centers, bringing beauty into places often overlooked. By the time the sun began its descent, casting a golden hue across the city streets, Lily felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had confronted temptation, made careful choices, and most importantly, discovered that her actions could create ripples of kindness and change far beyond what she had imagined. Jonathan glanced at her as they walked back to the car. "You've exceeded every expectation. Most people would have been overwhelmed, lost, or tempted by selfish desires. But you've made a difference without losing yourself." Lily smiled softly, her eyes reflecting both humility and pride. She had started the day as a girl surviving on the streets, uncertain and invisible. Now, she was a catalyst for change, a living example of how one person's choices could transform a community, and though she didn't yet know the full extent of the journey ahead, she felt ready. The black card had been a test, but it had also been a revelation, a doorway into possibilities she had never dared to imagine. As evening settled over the city, the streets began to glow with the soft hum of streetlights and neon signs. Lily felt the weight of the day pressing on her shoulders, but it wasn't exhaustion alone. It was the profound awareness of what she had accomplished and what could still be done. She walked alongside Jonathan, her black card safely tucked in her coat pocket, a constant reminder of the unusual opportunity she had been given. The city that had seemed so indifferent just hours ago now felt alive with possibilities. Jonathan led her into a quieter part of town, a neighborhood often overlooked by the affluent and bustling crowds. Buildings were worn, paint peeling, and windows cracked, but there was life here too. Children playing soccer in narrow alleys, vendors selling fruit from carts, and families trying to make the most of what little they had. It was a stark contrast to the luxury of the boutiques and hotels they had visited earlier, and Jonathan's tone reflected his purpose. "This is where the real test begins," he said quietly. "It's easy to be kind when the stakes are low, but real character is revealed when your choices affect not just yourself, but an entire community." Lily nodded, gripping the card tightly. She understood that the next step wasn't just about giving, it was about empowering others, creating change that could outlast her own actions. She wanted her choices to matter beyond the immediate relief they provided. Jonathan led her to a small, struggling community center. The building's doors were chipped, and inside, the furniture was worn and the walls bare. Yet despite its appearance, the space held a quiet potential. A few volunteers were preparing for an evening program for local children, their faces tired but hopeful. Lily felt a sudden surge of determination. Without hesitation, she handed over the card to the center's coordinator. "This can help you fix things here," she said. "Buy what you need, supplies, furniture, anything that can make a difference. And maybe think about programs that can help people like me get back on their feet." The coordinator's eyes widened in disbelief. This is more than we ever imagined. Are you sure?" Lily smiled softly. "Yes, Just promise me you'll use it wisely." Jonathan watched silently, impressed yet curious. He knew that Lily's generosity could inspire, but he also wondered if the pressures and temptations of wealth would test her resolve further. As they left the center, a sleek black limousine pulled up alongside them. The driver opened the door, and a sharply dressed man stepped out, extending a formal invitation. "Ms. Lily, Mr. Blackwell, you are invited to an exclusive charity gala tonight. It's an event where philanthropists, business leaders, and influencers gather to discuss giving and impact. Jonathan thought you might like to see it firsthand." Lily hesitated. Gala events were far outside her world, a universe of glittering gowns, polished shoes, and conversations she had only overheard in passing. But Jonathan's encouraging nod reminded her that this was another part of the test, navigating an unfamiliar world without losing herself or her values. At the gala, Lily felt a wave of awe mixed with anxiety. The grand hall sparkled with chandeliers, tables adorned with flowers, and waiters moving gracefully, with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Guests whispered in hushed tones, some curious about the young girl in modest clothes among the elite. Yet Lily held her head high, remembering the purpose behind her presence. She wasn't there to impress, to flaunt, or to seek approval. She was there to observe, learn, and continue making thoughtful choices. Throughout the evening, she encountered people who offered extravagant gifts, unsolicited advice, and even opportunities to invest in high-risk ventures. Many assumed she would be dazzled, tempted, or distracted by wealth and influence. But Lily remained focused, asking questions about charitable programs, sustainable initiatives, and ways to directly help those struggling on the streets. Her genuine concern and wisdom quietly drew admiration from several influential guests who were taken aback by her clarity and selflessness. At one point, a wealthy entrepreneur approached her, offering a private donation of hundreds of thousands of dollars to any project she chose. Lily thought carefully, recalling the faces of the people she had fed, clothed, and assisted earlier that day. She asked him to fund a citywide initiative for youth shelters and educational programs, ensuring that the help would reach many, not just a few. The man nodded, impressed by her foresight and empathy, and promised to make it happen. By the time the gala ended, Lily felt a new sense of purpose. She had stepped into a world she never imagined, confronted temptations, and still made decisions that reflected her values. Yet even as she felt proud, a quiet tension lingered in her mind. Wealth and opportunity were powerful, but they were also unpredictable. Who could be trusted? What challenges lay ahead that she couldn't yet foresee? Jonathan, observing her contemplative expression, spoke softly. "You've done exceptionally well, Lily. But tomorrow, things will get more complicated. People will test your generosity, your patience, and your judgment. Are you ready for that?" Lily took a deep breath, feeling the mix of fear and determination that had carried her through every hardship so far. I'll do my best," she said firmly. "I want to help as many as I can, but I won't lose myself in the process." Jonathan nodded with a faint smile. "That's all anyone can ask for. The next part of this journey will show you just how far kindness and integrity can reach, and also how quickly people can misjudge intentions when money is involved." As they stepped outside into the cool night air, the city lights shimmering around them, Lily realized that her life had already begun to change in ways she never thought possible. She had moved from survival to empowerment, from fear to purposeful action. But she also understood that true tests of character were never easy. They were relentless, unpredictable, and sometimes uncomfortable. And in that understanding, she found strength, courage, and a quiet hope that would carry her into the challenges ahead. The next morning, Lily woke to a city that seemed unchanged, yet everything felt different. The streets she had navigated countless times now carried new meaning. Every face she passed was no longer just a stranger. Each person was a story, a possibility, a reminder of the responsibility she now carried. The black card rested in her pocket like a silent promise, a tool of empowerment that could be wielded wisely or carelessly. Jonathan met her at the corner, his expression calm but expectant. Today will test more than your generosity, he said. It will test how you deal with influence, pressure, and the unexpected reactions of those around you. Are you ready? Lily nodded, determination shining in her eyes. I'm ready. I'll do what I believe is right. Their first stop was a high-rise apartment complex where a small group of people had approached Jonathan with a proposal. They wanted him to fund a startup, an idea promising quick profit, expensive perks, and exclusive opportunities. To most, this would have been a tempting offer, the kind that promised a taste of the lifestyle they had only seen from afar. But Lily noticed something different. The proposal included little thought for social responsibility, community impact, or sustainability. She took the black card from Jonathan, feeling the weight of both choice and consequence. We can't just fund this for profit, she said firmly, turning to the group. If we invest, we need to make sure it helps others, not just enrich a few people. Some of the group laughed, thinking her naive. You don't understand how business works, girl, one of them said sharply. Money is money, and it isn't charity. Lily held her ground, her voice steady. Then I won't give it. We have the power to make a difference. Why settle for anything less? Jonathan watched with quiet approval. Here she was confronting one of the most subtle challenges of wealth, not just having it, but wielding it responsibly in a world that often valued profit over people. Her integrity had become her compass, guiding her through decisions far beyond simple acts of charity. Next, they visited a local school struggling to maintain its programs. The principal welcomed Lily warmly, explaining the shortage of supplies and the impact it had on children who already faced significant challenges. Lily immediately saw an opportunity to create lasting change. With the black card, she purchased books, computers, and art supplies, ensuring that children could access resources that might otherwise have been denied to them. But it wasn't just about the material gifts. Lily took the time to speak to the students, listening to their hopes and dreams, encouraging them to pursue education and compassion as tools for their own future. She realized that helping people required more than money. It required attention, care, and a willingness to understand their needs. As they continued through the day, a new test emerged. A local news reporter approached Lily, eager for a sensational story about the homeless girl with a billionaire's black card. Cameras flashed, and questions were rapid fire. Would she splurge on herself? Would she squander the money? Was this some kind of scam? Lily felt her heart race but refused to be intimidated. She answered truthfully, explaining her goal of helping others and emphasizing the importance of compassion and responsible choices. Her honesty surprised many, drawing admiration even from skeptical journalists. But it also attracted envy and subtle manipulation. Some influential figures at the event tried to sway her toward decisions that would enhance their own image rather than benefit the community. The afternoon brought another challenge, temptation in the form of personal indulgence. Jonathan had left her with the card while he attended a brief meeting, and she found herself outside a luxury boutique filled with designer clothing and glittering accessories. The allure was undeniable. She thought of her tattered coat, her worn shoes, the comfort a small splurge could bring. Yet as she looked at her reflection in the polished glass, she felt the weight of the people she had helped and those still in need. Lily made her choice deliberately. She purchased a modest winter coat, shoes sturdy enough for the streets, and a few essential items for herself. Every extra dollar she could have spent on luxury went to a fund she established that would provide food, clothing, and education for dozens more struggling individuals. The satisfaction she felt was profound, a quiet validation that she could navigate temptation without compromising her values. Later, as the sun began to set, Jonathan found her sitting on a park bench, the city's skyline glowing behind her. "You faced your most complex tests yet," he said softly. "Influence, pressure, envy, temptation, they all came at you in waves. Yet you've remained true to yourself. How do you feel?" Lily smiled, a mixture of relief and pride in her expression. "It's not easy," she admitted. "I've been scared, unsure, tempted to take the easy path. But seeing the difference I can make, it makes everything worth it." Jonathan nodded. "That's the heart of true leadership and character. Power and wealth are tools. They reveal who you are and magnify your choices. You've shown integrity, empathy, and wisdom beyond your years. Tomorrow will bring the final part of your journey, and the greatest test yet, when others' actions challenge your compassion and your limits are pushed. As night fell, the city lights twinkled like a million tiny reminders of what was at stake. Lily reflected on her journey so far. She had moved from survival to empowerment, confronted temptation, navigated complex moral choices, and extended her heart to those in need. But she knew that the path ahead would test her in ways she couldn't yet imagine, challenges that would question not just what she could give, but what she could endure, forgive, and ultimately inspire. The black card remained in her pocket, a symbol of opportunity, responsibility, and the choices that define character. And in that quiet moment, as the cool night air brushed her face, Lily understood that the journey was far from over. The next day would demand courage, resilience, and perhaps the most profound act of humanity she had yet encountered. The following morning, the city seemed charged with anticipation. Lily felt it too, a mixture of excitement, anxiety, and the quiet certainty that today would define everything. Jonathan met her at the corner again, his usually calm demeanor showing a hint of intensity. "Today is the final test," he said. "It's no longer just about giving, responsibility, or resisting temptation. Today will reveal how you handle the unexpected, the unfair, and the morally complex situations that challenge even the best intentions." Lily nodded, gripping the black card tightly in her pocket. She had learned much in the past days: patience, generosity, resilience, and integrity. But she also knew that no lesson prepared someone fully for the unpredictable nature of human behavior. Their first stop was a large corporate office building where a wealthy charity organizer awaited them. The organizer welcomed them warmly, but as soon as the meeting began, Lily realized something troubling. The plan being proposed had a hidden catch. The funding would come at the expense of other community programs, and the focus seemed designed more for public recognition than real impact. Most people, she knew, would be tempted by the prestige, the applause, and the social leverage. But Lily didn't hesitate. "I cannot support this," she said firmly. "True giving isn't about recognition. It's about helping those who need it most, even if no one notices." The organizer's smile faltered. "You're very young to have such strong opinions," he said sharply. "Are you sure you understand the consequences?" "I understand," Lily replied confidently, "and I will stand by what's right." Jonathan's eyes twinkled with pride. This was exactly the moment he had anticipated, the moment when integrity and courage collided with societal pressure and expectation. Next, Lily returned to the streets she knew so well. She visited the people she had helped, the families, the children, the struggling individuals, and found that her earlier actions had begun to ripple outward. Those who received help were already passing it forward in small ways: a child tutoring another, a mother sharing extra food, a young man helping an elderly neighbor. Lily realized that her choices had multiplied in impact far beyond what she could have imagined. But the final challenge came in an unexpected form. A group of opportunists had learned about the black card and sought to exploit it, attempting to manipulate Lily into giving them large sums of money under false pretenses. They were persuasive, intimidating, and convincing, using every trick they could think of to bend her to their will. For a moment, fear crept into her mind. She remembered the pressure, the temptation, constant scrutiny of the past days. But Lily drew a deep breath and focused on the lessons she had learned. She listened carefully, asked questions, and investigated the situation thoroughly. In the end, she refused to hand over the card to anyone who sought to abuse it, instead redirecting resources to legitimate causes she could trust. Jonathan watched silently, a proud smile forming as he witnessed her courage and discernment. He had wanted to see how Lily handled not just kindness, but justice, vigilance, and moral responsibility, and she had passed with flying colors. Finally, as evening approached, Jonathan led Lily back to the same street corner where their journey had begun. The city had shifted subtly around them. More smiles, more small acts of kindness, a renewed sense of community that Lily could see and feel. "You've done it," Jonathan said softly. "You've proven that wealth and opportunity, when guided by integrity, compassion, and wisdom, can transform not just a life, but an entire community. How do you feel?" Lily looked around, seeing the streets, the people she had helped, the small ripple effects of her actions. She smiled, a radiant mix of humility and pride. "I feel grateful. Grateful that I was given the chance, and grateful that I could make a difference. It's not about the card or the money, it's about choosing to do good when you can." Jonathan nodded, impressed. "You've shown something rare and beautiful, that even in a world obsessed with wealth, kindness, and morality can shine brightly. You've turned a test into an inspiration for everyone around you." Lily held the black card one last time, then looked at Jonathan. I think I'm ready to live my life differently now. Not just for me, but for others too." Jonathan smiled and handed her a small envelope. "Inside, you'll find an opportunity to continue your work, funded responsibly, with mentorship and guidance. The black card was temporary, but the lessons are forever." Lily opened it carefully and found a set of plans to start her own community programs, scholarships, and initiatives to help people on the streets. Her heart swelled with hope, excitement, and a sense of purpose she had never known before. As she stepped out into the night, the city lights reflecting in her eyes, she realized something profound. Wealth and power were not the measure of a person's worth. Compassion, courage, integrity, and the choices made in difficult moments were what truly defined a life. The black card had been a test, yes, but it had also been a doorway to something far greater, a life dedicated to meaningful change. And as Lily walked down the street, quietly helping those she encountered along the way, she understood that her journey was just beginning. The world had challenged her, tempted her, and tested her, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. The homeless girl who once sat quietly on a cold street corner had become a beacon of hope, proving that even the smallest acts of kindness can create the most extraordinary transformations.